Their roaring blade crashed down on the lead Gallic, the vehicles in a spear formation hardly pausing as the lead vehicle was crushed. One of the Gallics smashed into their right leg, sending them tumbling into a building, blade ripping free from the crushed shell of the lead Gallic. Warnings blaring in their ears as they pushed themselves back to their feet. The wide circle of pavement before the gate a chaotic, close-range melee of sputtering Gauss rifles and flashing blades. The bright flashes of lasers ablating armor and flesh almost blinding. Hovering Gallics firing burst after burst of superheated, magnetically stabilized plasma into the horde of humans and androids, screams rising into the air amongst the clashing of steel and rending of flesh. A rail turret slug slammed into their arm, shattering it at the elbow in a shower of sparks and an almighty clang! Their hands spinning to the ground as they roared in pain. They swept their blade at the Gallic who'd taken their arm off, hungry, roaring teeth shredding armor and grinding ceramic. Another plasma burster orb slammed into their cockpit, sending them stumbling back, a lone Geknosian foot soldier quickly dumping the battery out of their launcher before sliding a new one in. They took a mighty step toward the foot soldier, teeth roaring angrily as they revved their blade. The foot soldier took aim, a deadly, radioactive green orb condensing at the front of the launcher. Their blades swung down too late, a bright flash blinding them as their cockpit was torn open, and they were forced apart. Halcyon flew through the air, blood leaking from his mouth, nose, and ears from an overpressure injury. He hit the ground, dazed and confused, crescent halberd snapping free from its leather strap and skittering along the ground as Halcyon rolled to a stop. Everything was blurry, muted, almost immaterial. He rolled onto his back, weakly gasping. Lucy! Lucy! She was on her back, cockpit smashed open. She lay still, her blade quiet for the first time since the battle started. A great sadness touched his heart, and he rolled onto his stomach. The Geknosions hadn't realized he'd been tossed free yet. He could still survive. He crawled towards his halberd, Gauss rifle lost somewhere amongst the bodies and splashes of intermingling red and purple blood on the battlefield. His right hand grasped the halberd's haft, just as a heavy metal boot crushed his fingers against the sturdy wood, making him cry out in pain before being kicked over onto his back. He gasped for the air robbed from his lungs, the muzzle of a Gauss rifle filling his view as he desperately tried to rip his hand from beneath the boot that had trapped him. Halcyon knew this was his end. He'd failed before he could even start. His vision blurred. He was crying? The rifle jerked, and Halcyon squeezed his eyes closed, expecting the worst. But when cold blood splattered his face, he opened them, just now registering the sonic boom that had accompanied the foot soldier's flinch. The foot soldier teetered back and forth for a moment. Left side of their helmet blasted open like a tin can as they tumbled backwards. He looked up from where he'd thought the shot had come from, heart pounding hopefully. The cloaked figure drew a flechette from a bandolier across their chest, railgun broken open along the middle as they slammed the flechette in between the rails. They took steady aim and another sonic boom echoed out across the battlefield as their muzzle flashed with electric arcs. Halcyon felt strength return to his limbs, snatching his halberd up and wildly swinging it at a Geknosian who charged him, wielding their Gauss rifle like a club. The mighty curved head of his halberd sparking off their armor as he rolled out of the way, the Gauss rifle smashing into the pavement and bursting apart. Halcyon crawled to his hands and knees as the Geknosian ditched their rifle and snatched a sword out of a fallen human's hand. They swung the keen steel at Halcyon, forcing him to scramble to his feet and jump back, balance failing him as the sword's tip whistled harmlessly beneath his chin. Halcyon fell on his rear, trying to brace his halberd against the ground as the sword-wielding Geknosian lunged at him, the bent tip of the sword aiming for his throat. Clang! Whack! The Geknosian's sword glittered as it spun through the air, Halcyon's savior seeming to have appeared from nowhere, sword blades spiderwebbed with dark lines like shattered glass, a bionic spine running up their back, their chest piece of hand-sized plates and titanium mesh already spattered with purple blood and locked into their bionic spine. A red mohawk of synthetic fibers stood brush-like atop the strange helmet, as it dully glinted in the sun. Sword arm quickly retracting from the cut, as a vicious headbutt sent the Geknosian crumpling to the ground with a dented helmet. The man turned, a young, scarred face visible behind the helmet's eye holes and vertical slit. The young man extended their free hand to Halcyon, his words reaching Halcyon's ears clearly through his damaged eardrums, their green eyes sparkling with conviction, rage, and if Halcyon's own eyes didn't deceive him, elation. Get up. The young man's voice was a curt growl, palm scarred where a blade had pierced it through and through. Halcyon was stunned, mouth agape and unable to respond. It was him, the swordsman who C-47L had described to them all. The swordsman shouted this time. "You gonna get up, Blondie? This is no time for a nap!" The shout finally shook Halcyon out of his daze, as he took the familiar stranger's hand, letting himself get hauled to his feet as Geknosions quickly surrounded them. Apparently, the swordsman was considered one hell of a threat to them. Halcyon gripped his halberd in two hands, spitting out a wad of blood as the swordsman's bionic spine pressed against his back. Halcyon forced a chuckle, the blood dripping from his nose bubbling slightly as he snarked. "Seems like you've made quite the name for yourself, swordsman." He heard the swordsman's dry, humorless laugh, crystal clear, over the din of battle. "I have, and to these lizard fucks it's death. On my mark, duck. Wouldn't want you catching a slug to the head." Halcyon was confused. Turning his head, he tried to ask what the hell the swordsman meant. He'd been avoiding gout slugs all day. "Oh, what do you—" "Mark!" the swordsman shouted, dropping to a knee and bowing their head. Sensing danger, Halcyon dove to the ground as the cacophonic roar of an HEP light machine gun split the air. The Geknosians surrounding them screaming in fear and pain as their armor and flesh was ripped apart at the chest. Purple blood geysering into the air as chunks of meat were thrown to the sky. Lifting his head, Halcyon couldn't believe his eyes. An 8-foot-tall samurai marched forward, one arm cradling a brutalistic, simple light machine gun. The other held out at parallel to the gun as a belt of ammunition snaked over their armored forearm and into the gun. Metallic links and durasteel casings spit out the other side as the samurai walked the muzzle of their machine gun back and forth across the Geknosian lines. A hand landed on his shoulder and he quickly rolled over, almost breaking his hand against the swordsman's helmet as he threw a surprised punch. The swordsman didn't flinch, a humorous grin showing through the vertical slit in his helmet. "Come on, get up. The ground can't be that comfy." Halcyon grumbled and rolled to his feet as the samurai marched past them, light machine gun clunking empty as they tossed it to the side, reaching over their shoulder and drawing a massive durasteel kanabo, spikes protruding from the metal club as the samurai wound back, before using the kanabo to send a ballsy Geknosian flying over the battlefield. A blindingly bright streak of light piercing the flying body, before silencing a Gallic, the heavy machine gun dropping to the ground with a hole punched clean through its power plant. A young man in a black gambeson appeared for a split second, a heavy weight at the end of a chain smashing into a Geknosian's face and sending them stumbling back as the young man winked out of existence. The stumbling Geknosian's head was turned to confetti as an old man in Mongolian lamellar armor blasted them with an ancient-looking shotgun, a nearly 1.5-foot-long bayonet attached to the muzzle. Halcyon was stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes as the swordsman dragged him towards the battle. "Who the fuck are you guys?" he asked, awestruck. The swordsman simply answering, "We're nobodies. Just a group of troublemakers being a thorn in the Empire's side. Now come on, we got some geckos to kill."